Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Stephen Jarvis and Friends podcast. Today, I'm actually interviewing a wrestler. Which wrestler, you may say? Well, he's from SoCal Pro Wrestling, and his name is Mathias. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. And I'm not just any wrestler. I may just be the most powerful wrestler you have ever had on this show. I don't know if you saw, but just a couple weeks ago, I took that guest of yours, Matt Thrash, that big old Bigfoot man. I threw him clear over the top rope into the third row. So a little something to be talking about here.
I mean, damn. I might have to get Matt on here one day and you two just go at it.
Yeah. Anytime he wants something, I don't mind to smash down Bigfoot.
God, I can already tell this is gonna be a good episode. So what got you into wrestling?
Well, I actually found pro wrestling by accident, because when I was a kid, probably I'd say 5 or 6, my parents got me and my brothers a TV. It was almost like a broken TV. It was like one of those big box ones that they just were done using, and they let us keep it up in our room. And for like an hour every once in a while, every like Friday or Saturday night, we'd be able to turn it on, kind of flip through channels. And we were flipping through like on a Friday night, it must have been. And this is probably in the late 90s, 98, 99 or so. And we see SmackDown's on, and The Rock is like cutting a promo on somebody. And we're all like, whoa, this is pretty cool stuff. Like, this guy's interesting, right? So we're watching it, but the problem was we didn't really know what it was on. Like, we're little kids. We're just like flipping through channels once in a while, and sometimes it happens to be on. So we catch it every couple of weeks and see what's going on kind of during the Attitude Era. And we're like, that's pretty cool stuff. So it kind of like set that seed in our mind. But then, the TV broke. We didn't really get to see it for a couple of years and kind of forgot about it. But around 2006, same thing. I was, sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, and I saw SmackDown was on. So I check it out. I'm like, I wonder what's going on in wrestling these days. And I see John Cena in his rap gear standing up on an announcer's table. And he's cutting like a rap on somebody that's in the ring. And I think to myself, like, this is awful. Like, I hate this guy. This is terrible. He's talking bad about this person in the ring. He's like just putting him down. Like, I hated it. Like, he was a bad guy at the time, but so it made sense. But I hated it. So I kept flipping through the channels and didn't think about it. But a couple months later, it just happened to be like, I guess a Monday night it must have been. And I was flipping through again, and I saw John Cena once again on Monday Night Raw. And this time, now he was like in his face phase where he was like being the good guy and like being nice and upstanding individual. I'm like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. So you could say John Cena is really what got me into pro wrestling. But I mean, overall, it's kind of like found it by flipping through channels one day. And I've kind of been watching it ever since. 06, 07 to me is when it kind of really started for me. So to me, those are the best years in wrestling, because that's just when really the time that I really got into it started. The storylines that they had, and that's what I liked.
Yeah. So in training to be a wrestler, for most people that try to become a wrestler, we all know they don't make it because it's tough.
Yeah.
And
it's
of course, back in the old territory days, they used to beat the crap out of you to see if you could actually hang with them and, earn your stripes, so to speak.
Yeah, so, let you real quick if this is what you want or not.
Yeah. So how was training for you? Was there any special mindset you had to get into, or was it just pretty much natural?
Certainly, there's nothing really natural about going into a ring and throwing yourself around and getting beat up. So it wasn't natural, but I certainly did my best to prepare, because I was in martial arts for 20 years, and then I was a powerlifter for a couple of those years. So I had some strength and athleticism built up. But even I kind of knew before I went to the training school, SoCal Pro Training, that I needed to prepare more so than just being strong and have some athletics. Like, I needed to be in shape. So for like the whole year before I even did my first like initiation kind of check out the school, I was running multiple times a week. I'd wake up in the morning and do like fitness workouts. Like I stepped away from powerlifting just to get myself in shape because I knew it had to be more that I had to do than just be strong. I had to have that fitness because if you don't have cardio, I don't know what you're doing in a wrestling ring. You know, you got to be able to do everything, not only be strong, but you have to be fit and be able to keep the whole match going. You can't just wrestle, you know.
Yeah, and plus, you know, is there any special like diet that you would be on at that point, or is it, you know, you don't eat? I've heard sometimes tuna, fish, and water. At least that's what Mr. T said.
My diet's not that simple, but yes, I actually have a degree in exercise science, and I took some nutrition classes as part of that. But I mean, I just know to stay away from things that make me feel bad, and I try to focus on things that make me feel good. So I always tell people that you should try to focus on whole foods, things like meat, eggs, oats, fruit, and vegetables. I mean, you can have other things, but those are the simple things that our body is kind of used to having. So if you focus on those, it kind of makes you not only look good, but it also, you know, makes you perform your best. So I don't necessarily have a particular diet other than focusing on those things, but you know, you definitely do need to kind of watch what you're eating because I mean, performance is a big part of what we do, and you have to find what not only in your training but what you eat can help with your performance or really hinder it if you have the wrong things. So I always tell people to really focus on eating the things that make you feel good and staying away from things that don't make you feel good.
Yeah. So what wrestling promotion did you really get your start in?
SoCal Pro Wrestling. You can check out SoCalProWrestling.com. And I moved down to San Diego 2 years ago. And there's a couple of schools around here, but that's the one that I just kind of found that fit me. You know, I kind of looked at the websites of the other ones, and I looked at that one, and that one actually had the training course coming up first after kind of the finish of the lockdowns and everything. That's kind of the one that I found that had a training course that I wanted to go check out. So I went and tried out after I kind of was preparing with all my running and whatnot, and got my start there and kind of just stayed ever since. You know, it's a great place. I mean, they're really nice and helpful to not only new people, but the people that have been around and just want to like come and drop by. Like we try to include everybody as much as we can, and we have great trainings every week. So I love it there.
How long did it take before you got to the position where you're at now?
Well, I started training in May of last year, so May of 22, and I had my debut in December of that year. But my real official, like big venue, you know, like where there's more than 20 people, was in late January. So I've really been doing shows and real wrestling matches since late January. It's about 9 months now or so.
That's cool. God, it's so weird coming up with questions for a wrestler, and they've been asked everything.
How does the chop feel? You know, what's it feel like to go? All that stuff. You know, how's the suplex feel? Not like you want.
No.
Yeah. That was the biggest surprise to me when I went in and did my first training. Is, you know, I thought that like the ropes were going to be the softest part of the ring, and I was a little nervous about hitting the turnbuckles because, you know, it's just metal with a little bit of pad. Let me tell you, hitting those ropes does not feel nice. Just as simple as running back and forth, you get to realize real quick that this stuff is tough. You know, I mean, it all hurts more than you would expect. You know, I always, like when we go and do shows, sometimes the fans want to like get in the ring and say, oh, like, let me fall down. I tell them, you don't want to do that. It's going to change your whole perspective. It does not feel like you'd imagine. Yeah.
So with SoCal Pro Wrestling, when did that all start?
When did the company start?
Yeah.
I think they've been around since the mid thousands. I want to say 2006, 2007, maybe even earlier than that. I think it may even have started with a different name, but I know that they've been around for, I mean, 16, 17 years. I mean, we just had our 16th anniversary show for SoCal Pro, so at least that long. And that was in April. So I guess they've been around 16, almost 16 and a half years, you know, owned by Jeff Dino. He's a really good guy and, you know, runs it really well. And actually, I really like the way that SoCal Pro does their production is one of the big things. I actually went to one of their shows before I started training there. And they have a nice stage that people come out on, a cool curtain and things. Like, I mean, they have a whole set of lights that we stand up every time and barricades. Like it's a real show, you know, like just like what you would expect if you were going to an indie pro wrestling show. It's not just a ring set out there. Like we have almost everything WWE has, just at maybe a little bit lower level, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's other promotions here that have that too, like Global Lucha Libre and a couple others. But I mean, SoCal Pro has that production value, let me tell you.
Heck yeah, man. I know that some people will be like, oh, well, you know, he's just an indie wrestler. But nowadays,
just an indie wrestler. Just an indie wrestler. Are you kidding me? Where do you think everybody starts? These indie wrestlers, we coming straight up through.
That's the thing I hate about wrestling fans today is that if you don't make it to WWE, they consider you nothing. And it's like you do realize most of those wrestlers you're cheering for, like Adam Cole, came up through the indies and cut their teeth in the indies. And then they say, well, no, they didn't. It's like, yeah, that's where a lot of the wrestling classes are coming from, is the indies.
Yeah, it's not like everyone goes to the performance center and learns there. And in fact, learning out on the indies, I think you, especially coming into the performance center from the indies, you learn more stuff. Because, I mean, there's so much variance in the way people do things that, I mean, you learn so much more just by having this experience that I'd say you can come out as an even better wrestler than if you just go straight to the performance center, which, I mean, there's great people that do that. But, I mean, if you have the experience beforehand, you learn how to talk and how to walk and how to do all the stuff, not just the same as everybody else, same as everybody at the performance center. It's a whole unique factor, you know. So I'd say indie wrestling is really where it's at, especially those that really are diehard fans of wrestling. I mean, why not come and watch it and see? Because there's some incredible things I've seen at indie wrestling shows. You know, I mean,
definitely
things that can compete with WWE. Because, I mean, WWE and all the other big promotions, they're somewhat limited.
Yeah.
We ain't limited.
And plus, with WWE and AEW, they're bringing in more of these indie wrestlers, and they're learning new things. I mean, you look back at WCW and back in the Monday Night Wars, we never knew of a thing called Lucha Libre style unless you would live down in Mexico or were brought into it.
Yeah.
We bring it to America, it's a new thing. It's bam, 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 bam. Where now it's kind of like wrestling, and I've said this before, wrestling goes in different decades. Or it hits its peak and then you got the lower years and then it hits back up.
Yeah, you get something new. You have those phases, you know, the eras.
And we got our first comment. Mathias is the next big thing. You're talking to a future supervisor, baby.
Next big thing? I am the big thing.
I wonder if that wasn't Matt right there.
Oh, yeah. Matt's been a fanboy since he first met me. You know, I first time I walked into one of the second classes after I came in, I walked in and Matt was in there to kind of help out with the training. You know, I'd been training for a couple of months, but it's the first time I met him. He was a fanboy from the start. Let me tell you, I walk in, he's already cheering me on like a little fangirl. You know, he's like, man, I've been seeing what you've been doing. It looks so good. You know, that voice that Matt's got. Yeah, he's real nice. Of course, he was kind of coach too.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been to a wrestling show. I did a little bit back in school.
What?
But yeah,
Never
I've
been.
never. My parents, first of all, my mom didn't like it. And
Okay.
second of all, my dad was always the old style one, like the AWA, Vergania,
Yeah.
WWF. And so when it got more showy, he didn't really like it. So me, when AEW first came to Minnesota, I wanted to go see it. Well, I got sick.
Mhm.
And it wasn't COVID or anything. It's just I didn't want to run that risk.
Yeah.
And so it sucked, but I always wish that CM Punk could have been from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Just so that he would have had his debut in Minnesota.
Hmm.
But and I mean and that's another thing. They talk about wrestling territories. Even though that the original name of the territories has died, I still think you're getting most of your talent from either Minnesota, California, Florida, and it's starting to now build more and more Texas.
Yeah, yeah. There definitely are some hot spots for it, but those are expanding these days. We're getting talent from all over the place. You don't have to like you hear Daniel Bryan when he first started. He turned 18 and drove all the way from Washington down to Texas to train. Like
Yeah,
you don't have to do that as much anymore. There's a lot more wrestling promotions around. And actually that was my difficulty when I've been wanting to get into wrestling for 15 years, but where I lived up towards Sacramento in California, I didn't have any promotions around me. Like I didn't have any schools. Like I had to wait until I moved to a bigger city to really find a place. So when I finally moved down here, I was able to go to a school, whereas people don't have that much trouble anymore compared to what we were 15 years ago. Where there's only like one or two places.
yeah. I mean, talking about some of the greats that come out of Texas, the Von Erichs, Stone Cold,
Yeah.
Undertaker, I do believe that came out of Texas. Yeah.
Mark Henry.
Yeah, Mark
Yeah, you
Henry.
can't forget Mark Henry, world's strongest man.
Yep, even though they tried to say he was from Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, that was just for his start.
Yeah. Blah blah blah. Have Mathias lift something.
Lift something. You come on and I'll lift you. How about that? Whoever you're commenting, why don't you put your name up there and you come over here and I'll start lifting you overhead.
I bet you 10-1 it's Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I already tossed him across the ring before. I don't mind doing it again.
Do you guys do any death matches in SoCal Pro Wrestling, or is that just pretty much what GCW is doing?
No, that is not our style. It's really not the way I have anything usually against it, but that's like a very specific niche that people like. Just because you like deathmatch wrestling doesn't necessarily mean you like pro wrestling. It's a little different. There's respect for each variance, but it's just different. So no, we don't do any of that.
Other than watching it on TV, was there anyone that really inspired you to become a wrestler? Like watching Stone Cold. I know you mentioned The Rock, but was there anyone else that that kind of inspired how you went into wrestling?
Yeah, it was probably John Cena. I mean, he had the best stories, but also the biggest fan base around the time that I was really getting into wrestling. So he really stood out to me. At first I didn't really like him, but same sort of thing when John Cena had the rivalry with Randy Orton. I hated Randy Orton during all of high school. I thought he was the worst character ever, like the worst person. Like I never wanted to see him wrestle. But the thing is, he was doing his job really well. He made me hate him. And now I look back, I'm like, I love those matches. He had not just Cena, but anybody he was going against. So, I mean, John Cena was definitely a big influence for me. But I mean, I like the Batistas, the Randy Ortons, the Triple H. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers that if they have some strength behind them, I really like them. I mean, that's kind of my base. Like I said, I did powerlifting for a while, And one of the coolest things for me is seeing John Cena pick up like the Great Khali and flip him over. Like that was my Andre the Giant moment when back in 2007 at I think it was not Judgment Day, but the One Night Stand when they had that Falls Count Anywhere match and John Cena was sitting up on the crane, took the Great Khali and flipped him over. To me, that was my Andre the Giant moment where I'm like, wow, that is what I want to be like. That's what I want to do. I want to pick people up, the biggest people you can find, and I want to toss them around. So, I mean, that's what got me into powerlifting. That's why I love squatting so much. You know, like I want to be able to lift the biggest person you got and show everyone else that I have that strength.
Well, yeah. And, you know, a lot of people, pro wrestling has evolved because they think that, you know, you have to look like Hulk Hogan did back in the day. Wrestling has evolved from that.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the 90s, you had, they called them cruiserweights, but at the same time, if you would have probably put the show on them, just like you put the show on the, as Kevin Nash liked to say, the dinosaurs, I think they could have ran the show just as much as Hulk Hogan and them did in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice to have the strength and the physique, but that's just for only a group of people like that. I mean, people like all different sizes and variants because people like to see what resembles them. You know, like I wanted to be strong because I like the strong characters. Where some people might like the moonsaults and the dives and things, so they might want to resemble that. You know, everyone has their parts that they like about it. So I just found what I like and kind of stuck to that.
Well, definitely. I mean, and when you were developing your character, was there any ones that you were taking away from and kind of molding it into what you think your character was going to be, or was it just instantaneously you knew what your character was going to be? You didn't look at like a Shawn Michaels promo and be like, you know, if I could take a little bit of that promo, mold it in with me, make it work a little bit better for me, or was it, like I said, just spontaneous?
No, I definitely take from actually quite a few wrestlers. You know, like I really like Goldberg. He was, you know, standout character to me. Batista, John Cena, some Randy Orton stuff, Triple H especially. Like, I mean, I like at different aspects of all those wrestlers and kind of just took the pieces that I really like and see what I can do and what works for me and just put it all together. But also at the end of the day, I knew I wanted to be me, which is why, you know, I stuck with my name Mathias. Like that was set in stone. Like my name was going to be Mathias. I didn't want any other character name. I don't want to change it. To me, it had to be Mathias. Beyond that, things can vary, but Mathias was important to me. It's my family name, and it's just what I want to have the world know is Mathias.
Well, definitely. I mean, you got to go with what you got to go with, you know? And so, out of all the matches that you've had, what is your most favorite match?
Oh, I'm glad you asked this. It may actually come to a surprise to a lot of people because I've had better matches and maybe more exciting matches, but my favorite match was actually my bigger debut in late January with Araxiel. You know, like I said, it may not have been my best performance, but it's the one that meant the most to me because, you know, my family was there and I just really like how the match went down. And it was the feeling of, you know, I went out for a couple matches before. It's like smaller shows, but it was the real kind of the first bigger show that I went out there and I'm like, wow, this is something I want to do, you know, and then how the match went and structure of it and what we did. I just really like that match. So that one's my favorite. That's the one I always tell people to go see is me versus Araxiel back in late January. But, you know, I've had better matches than that, like my match with Eddie Islas, you know, just a couple months ago. I mean, that was one of my favorite ones as well. You know, it's definitely up there. I had a much better showing performance with that one, you know, but I've wrestled, you know, Judiz and a lot of other people that really, each match kind of has its benefits and its negatives, like things that stood out to me as being really good and like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that again. Like things like that stood out to me. But that first one, or technically is my third one with the Raxial. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
So far.
Hey, Nonsensical Nonsense Podcast. Go check them out. They're great people. They evidently are showing love to me, which is great. We're here interviewing pro wrestler Mathias. And yeah, I think Matt's talking some major shit.
That's fine. My favorite match would be against Rotten Ronnie. I don't know. It'd be a pretty short match for you. So, I mean, I don't know how much I can do in 1 minute. You know, if he can even last that long. I'm pretty sure when I stepped in the ring, he was out of it within 30 seconds. So,
Ooh,
we'll see what happens if we get a round 2, if he ever comes out of retirement.
I don't know. I think if any promoters are out there, Mathias is throwing down the gauntlet to Matt.
Yeah.
Come on.
Me versus Bigfoot. Let's do it. Rotten Ronnie Thrash coming at you. What? I'm seeing these comments too. And
Yeah, they don't show up on my side, so I gotta kind of. Mathias, you look like Davey Boy Smith Jr.
I look much better than him, and I'm a lot stronger.
I mean, Davey Boy Smith, the original British Bulldog, was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I've watched him, and I wouldn't say I've taken anything from him yet. I'm still kind of diving back into that, but he definitely has some influence.
Yeah, that's like them over at Nonsensical Nonsense. They actually have a belt, and it says their podcast name on there. And I when I was on there, I was like, I'll take you fuckers on in a wrestling match. I said, my knees probably aren't all there, but I said, I could do it.
Hey, maybe it's me versus Rotten Ronnie. We'll see who takes the title at the end. You know?
There
hey,
you go.
Again, too. I don't mind. You know?
So, do people ever come up to you and like try you? Like say, oh, hey, you're just a wrestler, you know, I could do this and that.
I don't know if you could see so well on the camera, but I'm a relatively large human being. No. Nobody comes up and tries me. At least not yet. And if they do, they better be as tall as Rotten Ronnie Thrash, because yeah, they're barking down the wrong tree.
Yeah. I mean, you used to hear like Roddy Piper saying, you know, you had to fight out of restaurants and all that stuff. So I wanted to ask that question because you know how people will always say that what you do isn't, you know, it's sports entertainment, it's not real and all that, but yet it's like, okay, we know that the matches go down and someone's going to win. People are putting their bodies on the line. And I always used to get defensive for the wrestlers when people would say that it was fake. It's like, how can you say a guy coming off a turnbuckle hitting you with his full weight and that guy not get up is fake? Like,
yeah, the people that challenge wrestlers obviously have not done wrestling, because like I said earlier, it does not feel like you would imagine. It is a lot tougher. And I mean, you have to be tough to not only train in pro wrestling, but to continuously do it. I mean, some people might be able to do it for a day, but to be able to do it week after week, month after month, you have to be tough, because it tears you up. So, I mean, I've also, you know, done powerlifting, like I said before, and martial arts for a long time. So I never really had a lot of conflicts. I kind of stay in my lane, but a lot of people look at me and they're like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to test that guy.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, even if I was like some of these beer bellies back in the old 80s that were thinking, hey, you know, that's Jake the Snake Roberts, I should go try him out. No. I mean,
well, Jake
territories.
That's a good idea. You might pull a snake out. You know?
Yeah. There was territories back in the day that, I shit you not, if you were a wrestler in that territory, Florida was good for this one with Eddie Graham, I do believe, was the promoter down there. He would actually have you go into a bar, and if someone challenged you, not only would you have to take that challenge, but you would have to win.
Oh yeah, they say that in pro wrestling. If you get in a fight, you better win, or nobody's going to want to work with you.
Yeah.
You better win. So that's why we stay out of it the best we can. You know, I mean, we're professionals. I mean, that's the first thing we are. We're not just wrestlers. We're professionals. Yeah. We have to hold ourselves accountable, not just in the wrestling ring, but outside of it too. You know, like I don't walk around cutting promos on everyone that cuts in front of me and a line or something. You know, like I have to be a professional all the time. You know, that's part of being a professional wrestler, you know, or at least it should be for most. I mean, once in a while, you know, a knucklehead that starts doing crazy stuff, but, you know, we're not just wrestlers. We are professional wrestlers, and that comes first.
Do you have, with SoCal Pro Wrestling, do they have you guys do charities or like speaking events to kind of, you know, get the word out there about wrestling and the positives about it?
None that I've done yet. I believe that they do some. I mean, they'll do a free show once in a while to help some people out, but there's none that I haven't been around all that long, like barely a year. So there's none that I've been to, but I'm sure they do stuff like that. And I know that there are plans to maybe even get these into schools, you know, like schools for kids to see, not necessarily for the kids to do it, but just do like a show like after school or something at the school for kids to see and maybe get interested in it. And maybe we do some talks there or something. So we definitely are always in the works of doing stuff like that, but there's nothing I know about right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Favorite dream match of yours that you would want to be a part of?
I would like to be John Cena's retirement match.
Damn.
Yeah, especially if it's an I Quit match. Yeah, because I mean, he ain't never give up. Well, let's put that to the test. Yeah, that would be my dream match. I mean, there's plenty of other opponents that I also would like to wrestle and see. You know, I would love to have wrestled Triple H before he retired, but you know, I think that one's the one I've always thought of as, even if I just wrestled John Cena, you know, it doesn't have to be his retirement match, but if I get the opportunity, that would be the guy. And if I could pick him up on my shoulders and throw him off a crane, I'd like that.
Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh, man. Well, mine might be a little different than other people just because first person you have to have to me is Mr. McMahon. Even though he may not be the best in-ring competitor, but without him, there's none of this, you know, to me. I think it would have died long ago. So I think Mr. McMahon has to be up there. Hulk Hogan, you know, just because he was on top for so long. Stone Cold, definitely. And I don't know, there's so many other good choices, but I mean, I'd like to put John Cena up there, but I can't really, you know, do it without, you know, having some argument. So maybe a Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, you know, it's really hard to say. Triple H probably is actually the best choice, you know, because I mean, I think Triple H he was on top for a little bit, but I mean, he's really held his own for a long time. Yeah. And to me, Triple H is the greatest of all time, you know, not just because of his in-ring storytelling and his in-ring abilities, you know, but everything behind the scenes plus what he's doing now. Like, I don't know how you could say he's not, you know, he may not be best performer, but as far as overall encompassing pro wrestling, I think Triple H is the man.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays in wrestling, you watch on like AEW, WWE, they don't really like to sell a lot. Where like if someone works on your leg, I always thought, you know, sell that. Like, oh, I'm in pain, you know. And
yeah, keep the story going. You know, don't forget what happened in the first couple of chapters.
Yeah. You know? I always get a kick out of it how today's wrestling is so different from back then because it's more showy nowadays, but yet
Yeah,
there are some promotions that still have that deep root of, okay, we can have great characters, but we also want great wrestling.
yeah, yeah. And for me, what I always really like is actually the simple stuff. Like
Mhm.
I like the Goldbergs, the Batistas, not just because like Goldberg would run through people, but his way of wrestling, whether you think he sucks or not at it, it was very simple. Do a couple of big moves, move on to the next person. Batista could definitely go a little bit more than him, or actually quite a bit longer than him, and do some phenomenal matches. But he didn't need to do the dives and the crazy stuff. Like just do a couple of power moves and move on. And that's
Yeah.
a lot of the style of wrestling that I like. So it's what I do. Like I get in there and I toss a couple guys around. I do the big moves, and I try not to drag it on, and do a bunch of technical stuff. I mean, other people can do technical stuff, but I'm gonna go in there, lay you out, and move on.
So pretty much a powerhouse.
Yeah, to me that's what I like. That's what's entertaining to me. I mean, we all want to see somebody get thrown around, so why not have me be the guy? Get in there and throw some people around. Let someone else do the flips or the headlocks and the little wrist holds and things. But if you're in there with me, you're gonna get clocked.
Favorite tag teams?
Oh, Hardy Boys for sure. Just because of the Attitude Era and beyond what they've done. Like Hardy Boys stood out to me. Dudley Boys, I think I really like how they work together. Our Rated RKO, Edge and Randy Orton, they stood out to me too. So I mean, it's kind of hard to beat the Hardy Boys just because of how much they did and for how long they did it, and they're still working at it. So, but those are the ones that stand out to me. Is I like the kind of old schooler ones.
Well, yeah, I mean, so many people always ask me that same question. I think of Road Warriors. The Road Warriors were always my favorite because Hawk and Animal could never. It was like, okay, you knew that they would lose sometimes, but it's like you also know that they're gonna kick the person's ass in that tag team match.
And that's what we pay to see, right? That's why people pay to see me. I'm going to go out there and kick some ass. We'll see what happens at the end, but people are going to get messed up for a few minutes at least. You're going to get your money's worth.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, you could put the biggest of the bigs against the Road Warriors, and the Road Warriors would get their butt kicked a little bit, but then they would come back and, I mean, even from a technical singles wrestler, I always like Ricky Dragon Steamboat.
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff too, and I didn't realize that he was a monster when he was like first starting. He was huge.
So was Ric Flair before the plane crash.
Yeah. I mean, some of those guys back in the really early like 70s and stuff, they were huge. I thought he was a different person. Someone pointed out to me like, "Hey, that's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat." I'm like, "No, it's not. That dude's got like 20-inch arms. What are you talking about?" Like he's a whole different wrestler, in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah, I mean, and of course when he had his 1-off matches with Chris Jericho later in the 2000s, I mean, no one thought he could go. And he went.
Big mistake.
Yep. And I think that's why I love wrestling so much is that, wrestling pretty much is a story. You have your good guy, you have your bad guy.
Yep.
Well, in order to get that good guy over, you got to have that really, really nasty bad guy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say when they get into wrestling, they want to either be a good guy or a bad guy. Would you ever want to be a good guy, or would you love to be a bad guy?
I'd love to be a good guy, but I'm really good at being a bad guy. I mean, really, it's up to the fans. I mean, honestly, I've actually had some difficulty really getting people to hate me sometimes because I'll go out there and I'll just, like I said, Goldberg started as a heel. He started messing people up. People started cheering him. So, I mean, they just flipped him. that's kind of what I've been doing. I've just been as nasty to people as I can, almost spitting in their face, and they're like, "Well, that was cool. Well, I like this guy," you know.
Yeah.
So
I think that line gets blurred a lot nowadays between heels and faces because there's people that there's wrestlers that go like, "Oh my God, I don't want to be hated," and then there's ones that are like, "Oh, I don't want to be loved," and then you have like MJF, who's just in character all the time, does not care, flicks off a kid.
well, like I said earlier, I like Triple H, and he was a heel for
Yeah.
most of his career. The thing is, he was so good at it, and he was so badass, whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, just the way he did stuff. So I don't mind being either. Come out there and tell me what you want me to be, but eventually they're just going to like me one way or another.
Exactly. And plus, you are giving those people their money's worth.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's the one thing that I've always heard from wrestling fans is that when they buy that ticket, they want their money's worth. And with some of Hogan's matches, I mean, it was pretty much you watched him beat the bad guy up for a little bit, and then he'd get his ass whooped, and then the whole Hulk up, and then the leg drop, 1, 2, 3, done. I
yeah,
mean, people were getting tired of that 4 years into his run.
yeah. And same
And
sort of with John Cena. People were just like getting tired of his same old,
yeah,
you know, which is okay. I mean, a lot of people still liked it, but
yeah. I mean, they want John Cena to turn heel so badly. And like I said, I don't think it would ever happen in WWE. If he was ever signed to like New Japan or um, AEW or Impact, I think he could possibly be able to be like, hey, you know what? I'm only signing here because I want to be a bad guy.
yeah, I think if he turned heel, people just wouldn't believe it. Like
Yeah.
they'd want it, but then they'd see it and they're like, well, we already know you do all this charity and stuff for Make a Wish, and we already know who you are. So, like, I think it'd be really hard to turn him heel and have people boo him. You know, I mean, they liked booing him as being the same thing over and over, being the good guy, but they kind of knew the whole story. Whereas you turn him bad guy, like, how believable really is that? You know,
Well,
I think he might be able to, but it would be difficult to convince the fans.
yeah, I mean, they had those same difficulties when they turned Hulk Hogan bad in WCW. I mean, Hogan didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I heard that.
And then if he didn't do it, they were going to go with Sting as the third member of the NWO, which I don't know how well that would have worked. But
Could have been great. Could have been better. Who knows?
yeah, who knows? But I ultimately think that at that point in Hogan's career, most of those kids that cheered for him as kids were now teenagers. They had grown up and they wanted to see something different. I mean, it's something to say that when Undertaker first debuted, people were shocked. And then all of a sudden they get to know him more and more. He's cheered. And it's just like, wow. The age
Yeah,
of the anti-hero back then.
yeah. I mean, people like the characters. You know, Hulk Hogan and Undertaker were characters, but John Cena isn't necessarily a character. I mean, he's him. So turning him heel is to me quite a bit different than turning Hulk Hogan heel. You know,
Oh yeah.
he was a character. He wasn't him. You know, Undertaker was a character. So flipping him back and forth is okay. But John Cena, you know, how do you tell the whole world that this person who's been this person for a long time doing all these good, great things is now just a bad person? Like he has to do something that's real for people to be like, oh, I guess he is a bad guy now.
And a lot of wrestlers don't want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think the art of it in WWE is kind of dying off because it's like they don't want to get the fans all riled up to hate them. They don't want to, as I said before, be hated. But yet, you look at, where like you said, you do everything you can to rile them up. short of spitting on them, I'm sure, short of, giving them the old why I
Yeah,
got
don't worry, I haven't actually spit on anybody. That'd be a little bit too much, but I've gotten close. You know?
And, I think that art, if it could ever come back to where people in WWE could be like, hey, you know what? I'm a bad guy. Boo me. Where now it's just like, I'm a bad guy, but, these people need to know I have feelings. And a lot of those wrestlers back then did not care.
Yeah.
I mean, Roddy.
They were doing their job,
Yeah.
We're paid to do one thing or the other, and you're going to get what you get paid for. So.
And I think social media kind of has harmed wrestling a lot too.
Definitely, it's made it a lot harder to be a character.
Yeah.
And to flip flop and to hide things and to surprise people.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed the way that we look at wrestling.
You talked about a character that you are in the wrestling business. Could we possibly see him?
You're looking at him right now. You want me to cut a promo on you little skinny man?
Let's do it.
Okay. This next Saturday, you and I are going to face off. Now, you look pretty good. You look a little bit cleaned up or whatever. You're over in Minnesota. And I know out in Minnesota it gets kind of cold, so you're out there probably walking barefoot thinking you're all tough. But let me tell you, when you get in the ring with me, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds until, like I said, I'm going to throw you in that third row. But I'm not going to be done with you then. I'm going to pick you up, throw you back in the ring, put you in a submission hold, and make you tap out. It's going to be a piece of cake. This next Saturday, I'm going against Anthony Idol. I don't know if anybody in San Diego knows him, but if you don't, you need to check him out because it's going to be one hell of a match. He's been the strong man down here in San Diego for over a decade. I have actually seen him press a man over his head and throw him outside the ring. And whether somebody there catch him or not didn't even matter yet. But this Saturday, he's going against me, so he's got a big problem. You see, I have picked up and slammed the biggest man to ever set foot inside of a SoCal Pro ring. A man weighing over 400 pounds, I have lifted over my head and flipped him out. So this Saturday night, when I go against Anthony Idol, it's going to be something to see. It's going to be two big, powerful men going head to head, and we're going to see who's stronger. So.
Damn, that was a good promo, man. Round of applause for that one, man.
Thank you. Where's Ryan's applause? I know he's watching. He's got to be clapping out there for me, laughing, telling his jokes.
Oh, he always does. I mean, to be able to do that on the fly, and I'm sorry to put you on that spot, but dude, that was fucking great.
It's just me being me.
Yeah.
Turned up a little bit, add a little bit of craziness, some things I wouldn't usually say. Yeah.
So your next match with Anthony Idol, is his name?
Yes.
Right?
Me versus Anthony Idol this Saturday night.
What kind of match are you looking?
What's that?
What kind of match are you looking for with that? Are you guys gonna do a no DQ match, or is it just gonna be you kick his ass?
Just a standard match, but I mean we'll see when we get there what it turns out to be. But we're just gonna figure out who's stronger. He's been the strong man for a while now, but I'm just starting out. It's my first year. I'm gonna show him who's really strong. Yeah.
Damn. I wish I could watch that live. Oof.
Actually, you can. We actually live stream all of our shows. It's on YouTube. If you go to SoCal Pro Wrestling on YouTube, we live stream it every Saturday show that we have.
Damn, I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, please do.
I love, and I love the big companies, but I also love the companies like the indie promotions because you always get more, I feel, with wrestlers that haven't made it there yet.
Yeah,
and they're building that up.
You get more out of indie wrestling shows than you do with just WWE. You kind of know what you're going to expect.
Yeah.
But indie shows, you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, anything could happen at these shows. You know, like I said, I'm going to have a regular, if there is a regular match with Anthony Idol on Saturday, but doesn't mean it's going to turn out that way when we're out there. You know, a lot of times we listen to the fans and kind of change things up. But I mean, we might throw some chairs in there. We might, you know, hit some posts, go through the stage. I mean, you really never know. I mean, there's a ladder there I know where to find. I might go to the back, grab a ladder, pull it out. I mean, you really never know what's going to happen at an indie wrestling show. Whereas at, you know, one of the bigger companies, they're kind of limited, like I said before. I mean, they have to kind of stick to the plan. Yeah. We ain't got to stick to a plan.
Just go out there and kick ass.
Yeah, put on a good show.
So one more question before we wrap this up. If you could be signed by any wrestling promotion, which would it be?
WWE. I am WWE all the way. I got respect for Impact and for AEW, and they do great things. But my love in life has been WWE. You know, I not only want to work there, I want to own WWE one day. You know, I want to be one of the people on the board, if not the chairman. You know, I want to have the Triple H spot. So to me, it's WWE all the way, you know. And that's actually my next step, is I've been training and trying to get ready for I just saw that comment, Women of Wrestling. Yeah. Heard about that promotion, pretty good one, but it's really not for me. Yeah, WWE, because that's kind of my next step, is actually going and trying out for WWE and seeing what they think. You know, I've been told from, you know, my coaches, Tommy Wilson, Anthony Idol, SoCal Crazy, that I have a good look, a good style in the ring. I mean, they might take pretty good interest. I mean, any help anybody you can give me, you know, send my stuff out to WWE. I'm Mathias Wrestles on all social media. If you want to check me out and send some stuff to them and help me out. But that's the goal, is to get to WWE next at the Performance Center and see what they do with me.
I hope that dream comes true, because, you know, you do look like a throwback wrestler. One of those wrestlers that, you know, you could honestly look back and say, hey, you know, we could have put him back in the Hogan era, or we could have put him back in the 90s. And, you know, so I hope it works out for you, man.
Yeah, me too. More than you'd imagine. You know, everyone says that they have the dream of becoming a pro wrestler, but not everyone puts in the amount of work for the dream. You know, and there's always more things that I can work on, but I live this every day. You know, this is not just something I train for twice a week at practice or 3 times. You know, I don't just go to shows on the weekend. Every single day for 15 years, I've thought about this, and I've done things every single day to work towards it. You know, that was the reason I got into martial arts and powerlifting and stuff, is I saw this. I'm like, this is something I can learn from and take it to get me into WWE. You know, that's something I could put into my pro wrestling career to move me forward. You know, so I try to do as much as I can to keep moving forward towards that goal, not just a couple times a week, but every day.
So we'll wrap it up here. Tell everyone what you're going to be doing next Saturday, right?
This coming Saturday, yes, on August 12th.
Okay.
August 12th, it's going to be me versus Anthony Idol at SoCal Pro in Vista. It's going to be Title Turmoil. It's at the Vista Boys and Girls Club. The doors open at 6. The show starts at 7. And I can tell you, it's going to be one hell of a show. I kind of know a couple of things that's going to happen. It's going to be a good one. And if you can't make it, if you're not down here in San Diego, you can check out SoCalProWrestling.com and even SoCal Pro Wrestling on YouTube. Well, again, we'll live stream it. But that match with me and Anthony Idol, it's going to be a hard hitter, let me tell you. I mean, he's got those big bear paw hands, you know, he's probably going to try to lay those into me. And I'm going to see how much I can take and how much I can throw back at him. But I can tell you, it's going to be a hell of a fight.
Well, thank you so very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I hope you get more opportunities to be on different podcasts. I know Talking Shit might come knock on your door.
Yeah,
They had both Andy and they had SoCal Crazy. They had a few of the SoCal Pro Wrestling on theirs. So
Okay.
I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later, man.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on, and everybody go check out SummerSlam today.
Yep. Well, everyone, that was the wrestling legend himself, Mathias. Also, don't forget to check out the podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, go over to YouTube and please subscribe, as it does help out this channel. It helps us get bigger, better, and it shows that, we're getting to where we need to be. We're on the road to 100 subscribers. We're at 81 right now. Also, go check out the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast. Great group of people there. Go check out Talking Shit with Mark and Brian. Great people there. And also check out Flet's Movies and Pop Culture 13, all on YouTube. They're great. You'll love it. And I will talk to you Tuesday.